Hello, everyone. My name is Solé. This is Ciara, and this is our premiere episode of the Modern Day Goddess podcast. For this episode, we thought we would just introduce ourselves a little bit, tell you who we are, how we got here, how we found each other, and how this podcast came to be. So I'm going to start by passing the mic over to my co-host, Ciara.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first episode of the Modern Day Goddess. I'm going to go in a little bit about my journey. I feel like I've always been different, and that's actually what brought Solé and I together was our vast differences from the rest of the world. We really just honored who we are on a spiritual path, on a soul path, and it's kind of what sent us spiraling down into this awakening. So when I was a little kid, I was just always very in tune with the natural world. I was in tune with the things that people wouldn't generally talk about physically. And because of that, it allowed me to develop psychic medium gifts. I would know things before they would happen. And at the time, it was a really big weight to carry. But now I've been able to wield it as a gift that can really help others. My mom was also just very intuitive. I grew up watching her find parking spots out of nowhere. It would be absolutely impossible to get a parking spot if it was anybody else, but if it was her, it would just appear out of thin air. And I feel like that taught me the gift of creating and shape-shifting reality, because I would just watch her growing up, we'd pull up to a light and literally it'd be red and she'd be like green, and she would just wave her little wand and it would turn green. And at the time I just didn't know what was happening until I went down this path and I realized that we have so much more power than the world leads us to believe. And we just have to harness that, and we have to wield that, and we have to really take responsibility for our ability to create reality. And I think what really allowed me to really, really harness this gift of being able to create my own authentic, happy life was my ability to heal myself from really debilitating depression and anxiety, and realize that, the medical system, it wasn't something that aligned with me. I didn't want to be on pills for the rest of my life. I was just like, no, there has to be more to this reality. And although it was very much shoved down my throat that I had to be on medication for the rest of my life, I was like, no, I'm going to be my own healer. And I didn't quite know what that meant when I made that reclamation, but I realized that all of the pain that we are holding in our bodies, both physically and emotionally, is a result of some traumatic experience. And it gets trapped in the body. And if we are present enough within ourselves, we can clear that and it can completely dissipate and no longer have that imprint. So that's what led me here today. I'm an intuitive healer, certified Reiki master. Most of my work now is just public speaking and sharing my channels that I get on social media and through the event space, along with my solstice here, Solé. I'll pass the mic off to you.
It's amazing. It's funny because I feel like so many of the spiritual path stories are similar, albeit super different, but it's sort of the archetypal story of feeling like you don't fit in as a kid, and ideally and hopefully having some type of familial relationship that supports that in some way and normalizes it for you. And that I feel I definitely had through my mom, who was also a Reiki master, a therapist professionally, but, practiced yoga and meditation, was very into the healing arts. And, I joke that she raised me learning numbers through angel numbers, and somebody who really helped kind of hold the container for me to explore what this was all about. And so as a kid, just kind of raised in that world and in the world of energy medicine, if you will, and the normalization of using your reality as a tool for information and to, as Ciara was sort of explaining, to kind of extract and understand reality. And so I feel like I had that as a kid through my mom, and my dad, on the other hand, was more kind of scientifically minded, if you will, which was always nice for me because it sort of kept the heat on me of needing to also stay grounded in the 3D reality where facts and data and realism are king, right? And so I had kind of both sides of that, which shaped me into also thinking I was going to go down kind of the healer path, therapist path. And then right out of college, had what I call my awakening was really at the time just a me taking on my mission. And at that point, I gave everything up. I sold everything and took about 5 years where I was working remotely and traveling and living out of a suitcase, just finding a way truly through meditation, hours of meditation every day, and living in places that I didn't know anybody. So I was just kind of in a cave and learning what all of this meant for myself, and primarily experientially, because the truth of the matter is everything that we're talking about here and everything that you're going to hear us talk about has very much been led experientially, which is the way of the spiritual path, because it's a learning through your own life experience. It is a self-exploration. And in fact, what started me in my kind of cave time was that I thought I was going to get into a master's program for social change, because in my brain that I needed to change the world. That was sort of my awakening, was me taking on I needed to change the world, and what better way to get a master's in social change is obviously that's what you do. That never happened, funnily enough. And so I joked that I went on for a self-mastery program, and that's what that 5 years was for me, of just kind of holding out and figuring out who I am and what my gifts are and what this is all about. And so that way I could speak to it in a way that was true to the human experience. And that then took me into being a Reiki master and kind of doing all the things that I do at this point, and had the kind of counterbalance of my mom being super spiritual and very deep into kind of everything that we're talking about here. And then my dad, who provided this sort of framework, if you will, of being able to speak about it in a way and to anybody, who I could sit down with. And so, fast forward to here, and along that journey, my mom died, which of course was a whole nother beast. Took a couple of years to heal from that and to learn the kind of very human experience of grief. And then kind of fast forwarded into my work that I do now as a second generation Reiki master and healer and a spiritual teacher. And so then insert Ciara here, because we sort of found each other really online through Twitter, I guess is where we first connected. And just really found that we were kind of speaking the same language. And anybody who knows, and anybody who's on this path knows how good it feels to just find even one person who speaks your language, because you don't have to you don't have to close yourself down. You don't have to fit a certain mold that you don't fit. And so to find other people and soul tribe, if you will, that speak the same language, who you can just be your full self around and they get it, that was what really brought Ciara and I together. And so her and I both kind of sharing on Twitter, we found each other, really connected, and then just started having these super deep conversations where we could literally feel reality shifting around us as
for
we were
hours. For literal hours. We would just share everything that was on our heart, and we'd be we would get it.
Yeah.
And we would both come in and just be like, I'm here to change the world. Actually, I think we said we're here to take over the world.
Specifically.
And no one has ever said that. No one would even dare to say they're here to take over the world. It was I'm going to change the world. And we were both no, front and center, we're taking it over, and it's going to be to change the world for the better, to restore it to a place of healing. And there was just medicine in that.
Absolutely. And to bring forward the awakened path, because I think that that's what's missing in the Matrix, is the conversation about what it means to be an awakened person and what value you bring to the world as someone who has gone through yourself. And, there's no conversation. They don't teach you that in school. That's not what's cool. I have a nephew in my life who uses the word aura all the time. And I think it's cute to me, because it's finally getting mainstream to talk about having an energetic body that's healthy and powerful. But that's where we came together. And as powerful women and empowered women, that's kind of what brought us into what we call the goddess, if you will, which is just the archetypal term for an unawakened woman, a woman who is in her power and she knows herself. She's downloaded her spiritual gifts and uses them actively. She facilitates the awakening for others just by being in her masterful vibration. And really, ultimately, that's any person. And obviously, that's not specific to women. However, I think it's fair to say that the feminine is very missing on the planet. And there's the sort of spiritual aspect and the quantum aspect to the feminine that is not being spoken about enough. And so in our conversations, we get in this big, deep quantum dive that would just cover all aspects of everything. And eventually we were okay, we need to start recording these, because people, need to hear this, and people need to be normalized. Because it is also true that a lot of people don't have the family member or whomever to normalize these kinds of things in their lives. So you just kind of go about, as reality tells you you're weird or different or something's wrong with you, because you can read energy. Yeah, literally. There's medication for that.
Yeah. You see spirits, you see your energies. We need to put you on medication right now. But no, absolutely. And I wanted to add to that too, because I feel the awakened woman is the one that is honestly what your generation, your ancestors have been praying for. It ends with you. All the cycles of abuse that have been passed down through your feminine lineage, all the times that they were taken advantage of, raped. Like, it's like you are bearing the weight of everything that has happened to you, and you're saying no more, no more. I'm healing this, I'm clearing this. It is no longer going to be passed down through me generationally. And it's the biggest blessing, because you're literally rewriting your entire bloodline's patterns, all the patterns that have been cycled down for years, hundreds of years. It's just like, no more. And also, it's the ability to utilize your reality as a compass for what needs adjusting within you, because the goddess knows that her vibration is what creates her surroundings around her. And it's like, okay, if this is showing up in my reality right now, this has a lot to say about me. It says a lot about like what I am allowing, what I'm attracting vibrationally. And it's literally taking that responsibility and just being like, no, this changes here. Like, I'm no longer in alignment for that. A big buzzword in the spiritual community is alignment, but it really is alignment for you in your life. It's like, how can I become more aligned to what is most true, what is most alive, what is that feeling of liberation, what are those things that light me up? Because if it's not that, I'm lining up for the things that are not what my passion is. And so that means I need to steer back into the pathway of what is. There's something that needs changing, and it's like, it's not anyone else's fault. It's like you. And it's like such a hard thing. Like, it's those moments where it's like you're on your knees and you're just struggling so much with things that are showing up, like patterns that just keep cyclically coming forward. And it's like, oh, it's me, and I gotta make that change. And just facing that and letting it breathe and letting it clear, and then taking back your power and be like, actually, I'm going to change this. And actually, I'm going to hold that boundary.
It's so true. And that's why, to be clear, and, we hope to obviously reach audiences far and wide. This is not just a podcast for women, although obviously, we're going to cater to women because we are both women. But, everything she's just described is any person far and wide that, accountability is the name of the game as it comes down. And accountability means reading the patterns and pattern recognition and understanding the information as it lays itself out in front of you and within you. And, that's what, as healers, you start to learn, wow, this thing manifesting in this region of my body is perfect information, using the perfect intelligence of the body to tell me what I'm still holding on to, what I have not released, what trauma still lives within me, what, where I still need to repair my relationship to my parents. Any number of things. It's a perfect reflection. The world is a perfect reflection. And I think as you move through your spiritual path, you start to see it as that. So things never happen to you anymore. As they love to say, things start to happen for you no matter what it is, because you realize everything is just leading you further, closer to yourself. And if you can take the path and receive it as that, then you will only get closer to yourself. And that's always the invitation. And so instead of this kind of why me that happens, and of course we all fall into that at times because it feels like that, naturally. And you can stand yourself up and say, actually, I can see now why this is. I mean, I had so many why me's in losing my mom. Like, I was deep in victim mode for a while because it just didn't make sense. She was the one person that made sense of all this for me. All I needed was one person, and if you would have ever asked me prior to then what my biggest fear was, it would have been losing her, because that was like my number one that made everything else make sense. But now, even still, it all makes sense, on the other side of that, and having actually moved through that and actually spent the time in the grief to heal from that, And that's what it comes down to, I think, in general, and as what we want to kind of bring to the collective and talk to you guys about and normalize for all of you is just like the components and the archetypes that happen on the spiritual path. And that there's more to life than this 9-to-5 matrix reality where people are slaving away and selling their souls and doing things they hate all day long just so they can escape and cope with it on the weekends and hate the rest of their lives and don't do anything that they actually like. They don't even know what it feels to be lit up. They don't know what alignment actually means. And we're giving you the context for that, and we're inviting you down the path in a very real way, because the truth is we are at a choice point. Humanity is at a choice point right now, and we get to decide what's going to come next. We can either go this way or we can go this way. And if we choose to continue to awaken, and all it takes is a few of us, that's kind of the archetype of the 144K, is that it takes only that amount of people out of 8 billion of population as long as those commit to their own awakening, the rest will also awaken. And so it's a fierce commitment to your own awakening and to your own path and to your own willingness to be accountable and to read the signs and patterns of your reality and to use that as a sort of steering mechanism for you to get closer to who you actually are and you are divinely designed to be, so that you can exist as that in this world that desperately needs it.
Wow. Yeah. Mic drop there. Heck yeah. No, and beautifully said. And I was just thinking too, like, it's like we need to look at the world on a global scale. On a global scale, the world is at war. And if we're looking at that on the macro, it's a result of the micro. The micro means that we, on a collective level, are at war with ourselves. We are at wars with ourselves. We're looking at our reflection in the mirror and we're attacking that. So therefore we're attacking others. And then it manifests into this big war. And if people are going back within themselves and falling back into their heart space, back into their body and looking at their deepest pain, they wouldn't feel the need to attack one another. They would realize that we can actually work together in unity. And we could do the things to build a great world and to add to society, but also what is we are most passionate about. And like you said, like we are at a crossroads right now where we do have the help of AI. And I think there's a lot of fear around that because AI is taking our jobs. That's the fear narrative. But what if they can actually really contribute to the things that are really hard for humans to do? And it creates more space for the things that they are passionate about. And or it can go the dystopian way where it just we completely lose sight of our humanity and it takes over our soul and that's just reality and we're evolutionary. But no, I think like you said, it's like the 144K. We're really we're gonna wake up and we're gonna lead the pathway to truth. And we're gonna restore heaven back on earth, which is just living a life that you're passionate and excited about.
It really is. It really is. And it's amazing. And Ciara and I talk about this all the time of like how much you have to almost fight in this reality just to like reclaim heaven. And it's true. It starts internally and that's the only way and the only place. And anything that happens in the external is always going to be a reflection of what's happening inwardly. And that's what we're going to get into on this podcast. And we're super excited to share that with you and share our journeys and weave that in and the teachings that we've learned along the way. And we hope you'll take this ride with us. And thank you for being here. I think we're going to call it there for the first one.
We're going to go deep.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Be ready. We got our swords out. So thank you, everyone.
Until
we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.